record this. We're rolling. So thank you for coming tonight. I hope this is worthwhile for you. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go over some practice questions, and they should be representative of what you are going to see on the exam. Okay. Now it's not comprehensive. We won't go over the entire content, because that would take like 4 or 5 hours, and it's very difficult to make questions covering the entire content. So we have around like maybe close to 20 questions. We'll go over them one by one. We're going to do them on a polling app on Slido. So on your devices, go to McGill polling, and you can just sign in with your credentials, and then we'll have a code come up. Now, can I get your attention, please, real quick? Real quick. There's a lot of you. There's only 3 of us. I'd like to introduce the other USCAs. Victoria is going to be handling the body fluids questions. That's Sacha. Is going to be handling blood. The other USCA couldn't make it here for transport mechanisms, so I'll take over, and then I'm doing immunology. All right. And so, just so we can get this done in a timely manner, because I got a dip at 7. I really got a dip at 7. What we'll do is just keep it down. We gotta move through this quick, all right? You guys aren't in kindergarten. I don't have to be like, hey, yo, quiet down, okay? Let's be efficient through this. So, any questions before we start? Any questions? No? So, the thing is, we had 2 lectures for body fluids, 2 lectures for transport mechanisms, 5 for blood, 4 for immunology. Kind of, if you redistribute it, that's how it's going to be on the exam, okay? So I kind of did the math, maybe a little bit. You might have like 4 questions on body fluids, 5 questions transport mechanisms, or the other way around. Blood is going to be around 11, and then immunology is going to be around 10, okay? If you do the ratio, cross multiply, divide. Anyways, now let's get started. Let's see. That's the code. Type it in, or use the QR code. What we're gonna do, we're gonna give some time for you to answer it. You can discuss with your friends. Then we're gonna cut it off, and then we're gonna show the correct answer, and then Victoria's gonna explain. All right, and then we're gonna go through all the questions one by one like that. Okay. Sweet, you got this, boss. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you another around 30 seconds, and then I'll show the answer and lock the voting. So get your answer.
I gotta share my screen.
Oh. Yes.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm gonna off the voting now. Okay, so most of you got it. I'm just gonna go over the correct answer. Okay, so the correct answer is an elderly female because of an increase in connective tissue. So the first option is wrong because although there is a decrease in body water percentage with puberty, adolescents will still have a higher body water percentage than elderly individuals. So the second one is wrong because infants have the highest body water percentage. And the third one is correct because elderly individuals will lose muscle mass, and this muscle mass is replaced by connective tissue, which is a drier tissue. And that essentially decreases their body water percentage. And this answer is correct instead of the elderly male because females have lower body water percentage because of the increase in adipose tissue. And this difference is present throughout the lifespan after puberty. Okay, any questions about this? Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. This is also being recorded, so you can always go back and look at the recording. Okay, all good? Okay, so another 30 seconds and then I'll lock the voting. Okay, so most of you got the right answer. And so the correct answer is option D, 51 liters for the total body water and 17 for the ECF. So in this problem, we're given that the ICF is 34 liters and we're told that this is a healthy individual. So we should assume that we're working with the ratios that we saw in class. So the slide from the slide deck, slide number 54, is really good to know for the exam. So basically, ICF is 2/3 of total body water, and we can just rearrange the equations. So 3/2 times the ICF will give us the total body water. And since we know that the total body water is composed of ICF and ECF, you can just do simple subtraction to get the ECF. That makes sense? Any questions? Okay. Okay, so I'll give you guys another 30 seconds. Okay, so the correct answer was no, the individual is not in water balance, and they likely have renal failure. So why is that? From the information that we're given, we can calculate the total intake and total output of water. So we know here from the calculations that water intake is greater than water loss, which indicates that the person is experiencing water intoxication. So in class, we looked at two possible causes for this, which are renal failure or possibly excessive intake. So the other answers are wrong because B, obviously they're not in water balance. C would be negative water balance. Same for D. And from our calculations, we know that's not the case. Is that clear? Okay, 30 more seconds behind. Okay, so the correct answer was 29.5 liters. So in the question, we are given that the total body water is 42 liters. And in this question, they're using inulin, which is an indicator used to measure the ECF. So since we're given the quantity and concentration of inulin, we can figure out the ECF volume just by using V equals Q over C. So we get that the ECF volume is 12.5 liters. And since we're given total body water, we can just quickly subtract to figure out that the ICF volume is 29.5. Any questions? Okay, so that was the last question for the body fluid section. So we'll be moving on to blood now.
Round of applause. All right. Yeah, I got it. All right, I just wanted to mention that I'll be taking questions here and there if you raise your hand, obviously, during my section. But if you're on the more timid side and you want more of a one-on-one thing, I'll stick around after as well, and we can go through some of the material. All right, because we're trying to rush through these questions. So do I have to unlock the, or is it? Okay. I'll give you guys a few minutes. The whole course is multiple choice. All right, let's take a look at the results. Do not have the right there you go. All right, good job, guys. Okay, so this is actually a really, really important concept, and I can pretty much guarantee you're gonna have at least one question about these transcapillary forces on your exam. It's also really nice because it integrates basically body fluids, blood, and transport mechanisms. So how I like to see it is basically in the blood, you have these colloids, which are the plasma proteins, and those do not penetrate the membrane, right? So if you remember from Dr. Schreier's section, that basically means that the osmolarity in the blood would be higher, which would pull the water from the interstitial fluid into the blood, right? That's just really simple osmosis. And on the other side of that, you have your hydrostatic pressure in the blood, which is just your blood pressure, like when you go to the doctors and they measure your blood pressure. And since fluid tends to move from high pressure to low pressure, that force will push fluid into the interstitial space from the blood vessels, right? And you sort of have this balance
of these two forces that distribute the fluid between the two compartments. Okay, so really important concept. Make sure you really understand how the two forces and how the interplay works. Okay. All right. So guys, when you're reading a question like this, really make sure to read the question properly, right? You see how it says false, and in Fiji, they're sort of good about it, the professors. They make sure it's obvious. Normally they'll either put it in caps or underline it or bold it or all three. So you can't really miss it in a case like this. So let's go over the question. Right, so which statement about blood clotting is false? So it is indeed the formation of a thrombus. Thrombus is literally just another name for a blood clot, right? Thrombocytes, thrombopoietin, thrombopoiesis, all those terms are related to blood clotting. Definitely something you should know. It does occur after the formation of the platelet plug. So the platelet plug is part of that primary response. It's that sort of immediate short-term response, and then you get the blood clot. It does not require the presence of red blood cells, right? So red blood cells do get caught sort of in the mesh, because inevitably you're gonna have millions of red blood cells per unit of blood, so they're for sure gonna get caught, but they're not necessary for the formation of a blood clot, right? They're sort of just like a secondary event that happens. It is, of course, a result of a huge cascade. You guys are probably familiar with that by now. And it does involve positive feedback by thrombin. This is actually one of the rare examples, I would say, of positive feedback in physiology. Definitely be familiar with what positive feedback and negative feedback mean. It's going to come back a lot in these physiology courses and throughout your degrees. So in this sense, positive feedback just means a small amount of thrombin is made, which sort of increases the production of thrombin, whereas negative feedback would have been if a certain amount of thrombin is made, it decreases the amount of thrombin made, right? So just opposite effects. Okay, any questions about that one? All right. Okay. So question number 3 was which of the following statements is or are true? And of course, most of you got it right. It's all of the above. So let's go through it. So blood loss is likely to stimulate the secretion of higher than normal levels of erythropoietin. So you can kind of see this as homeostasis, right? If you're losing blood, you're losing red blood cells. Your body's going to want to make more red blood cells. Therefore, it's going to stimulate the release of the protein that stimulates red blood cell formation, right? Mature red blood cells lack a nucleus. That is true. They're really like a unique type of cell. They don't have a nucleus. They don't have a mitochondria. Most of the space is optimized to really have that hemoglobin in there to carry oxygen because that's their main function, right? The hydrostatic pressure difference between the plasma inside the capillary beds and the ISF surrounding the cells favors filtration of fluid. So filtration is just another term for movement of fluid from the capillaries to the ISF, right? And we just talked about that. So the pressure does indeed from high pressure to low pressure into the ISF. So that's filtration. And yes, clot retraction does indeed require a protein release by the platelets, which is called thrombostenin, right? So clot retraction is when that clot sort of decreases in size and contracts on itself. Okay, so yes, all of the above were true. Any questions about any of these statements? Oh, yeah. Yeah, thrombocytes are platelets. Yeah, so just most cells will have a bunch of different names. But a way you can remember that is, right, what I just said from before, thrombus is sort of a word for clotting, and platelets are involved in clotting. So anytime you see that prefix, it'll be involved in some way with clotting. Okay.
All right.
Statement B is actually supposed to say edema caused by a decreased colloidal osmotic pressure. Just there's a little typo in the sentence there. No, I think it's me because it's the PowerPoint there. Right. Okay, that was a pretty tricky question, right? Okay, let's go through it. All right, so let's go back to what we talked about before, right? The colloidal osmotic pressure, right? If you have a decreased albumin production, albumin being the plasma protein that contributes to COP the most, as you guys know, it's the most abundant protein in the plasma. You would definitely not expect an increased blood volume because that force pulling fluid into the blood would be decreased, right? Because it's directly related to how much protein is in the blood. So essentially it goes decreased albumin production, decreased colloidal osmotic pressure, therefore decreased fluid being pulled into the blood. Edema caused by a decreased colloidal osmotic pressure, that is correct. So like I just said, the force, that balance between the force pulling fluid in and out of the capillaries would be thrown off, and more fluid would be sort of pushed out. which causes edema, which is just a buildup of fluid in any part of the body, right? Decreased oxygen carrying capacity, that's not really related to the statement here. That would be more so related to hemoglobin, or just red blood cells in general, not really the plasma proteins. And then an increase in blood pressure as a compensatory mechanism. We probably expect a decrease in blood pressure to sort of counteract that decrease in force pulling fluid into the blood, right? Does that make sense?
No.
No, the blood pressure one? Yeah, no, okay. So essentially you have a force pulling fluid into the blood vessels and a force pulling it out, right? And in this case, if you have a decreased albumin production, that force pulling fluid into the blood is decreased, right? Do you agree with that statement? Yes, but yeah, but that's why sort of it says here as a compensatory mechanism, your body would sort of increase the blood pressure as a consequence of that, right? So yes, probably in the short term, you would probably expect some sort of short-term decrease in blood pressure, but sort of to maintain that homeostasis, you would expect your body to increase the blood pressure to sort of to decrease is what I meant. Sorry, guys. If anything, yeah, we'd expect a decrease in blood pressure. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I got confused in my own words there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So essentially, how I see it, you have a balance of these two forces, right? One of them pushing fluid out, one of them pulling fluid in. If your force pulling fluid in this case is decreased, there'd be sort of your balance would be thrown off. There'd be more fluid being pushed out, right? Which is why we have edema in this case. And then your body, as a consequence of that, would probably decrease blood pressure to sort of maintain that, sort of come back to that equilibrium, right? Does that make sense? Yes, but as I was explaining before, that I added like as a compensatory mechanism there, because in terms of compensation, right? The body's sort of trying to compensate for that loss of fluid from the blood by decreasing the blood pressure to sort of prevent the body from losing more fluid. Does that make sense? Yeah. So sort of, we're always trying to come back to that homeostasis, right? We're always trying to maintain a certain volume of blood. Sorry if that was confusing, guys. Does that make sense? And if you have any questions, please ask. Yeah, that makes sense? Think of it more in the long term, right? It'd be more of a longer term decrease in blood pressure, right? Yeah, guys, I can't hear. Sorry, I can't hear the question. Can you just be quiet for a second? Is this going to increase hematocrit?
Won't be asked that on.
Yeah. Let me think about that one. I'll come back to you. Okay. All right. I think that's it for me. Yep. You are you doing
We'll run the transport mechanisms one.
I'll lock it up.
Thanks, boss. All right. All right, all right. Oh, dang. Okay. This is a good one. Everything else has been high percentages. So it looks like we have some discussion to engage in here. So I'm gonna take a Socratic method, a Socratic approach here. I'm gonna ask you, why is A wrong? But who is the brave soul? Yes, I see you back there. Nice. Nice. All right. So that is how PHGY can test, intracellular, extracellular, in the heat of the moment, you might read intracellular as extracellular or extracellular as intracellular. So make sure you take your time. You're not in a rush. You got 3 minutes per question, right? It's an hour and a half. It's 30 questions. It's a lot more time than you think, okay? Now, fluid mosaic model. I mean, there's fluid in the word right there. So it has a fluid character, not a rigid character. Excuse me. Thank you. And then the integral membrane proteins are closely associated with the membrane. They're through the membrane. It's the peripheral ones that are on the cytoplasmic side that are loosely associated with it. All right. Any questions? Perfect. I did my job well. I will be transparent here. I have not done transport mechanisms in 2 years. So I'm just going entirely based off of these clouds. Okay. Can I get your attention real quick? So you won't get a question stem like this. Here we have false, and then none of the answers are false. That's a double negative. So if you have to make a change, do it now. Right? Because one of them is actually false, which makes E false. So you understand how this, so it's not E, okay? It's not E. So make a change if you have to. I'll give you 10 seconds. Okay. All right. This is exquisite. Right? So this formula, you will see this in PHGY 210 as well. Okay, so this is one to keep in mind. Is supposed to be inversely proportional rather than directly proportional to the surface area. All right, and it's also directly proportional to the permeability coefficient. All right, and let's see for A. This one's true. C, that one's true. D is also true. Brownian motion. We won't go into that. No. Any questions? Yeah, yes, everyone quiet. We got a question. What's up, Bob? I don't know. So your question is, why would it be inversely proportional to surface area? Okay. While you're answering the next question, I will do my best to find you an answer. Okay.
Basically, it's the same last year, and
Oh,
last year I think D was the correct answer,
D.
but I mean D is true. So this one is false, but it's because they're both directly proportional. Like
So this one's false because they're both supposed to be directly
Yeah.
proportional. Ah, I
the
see.
area. And it's also proportional to surface area, and also directly proportional to the coefficient. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Get your answers in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. It's always fun watching the numbers jump up when I say that. Lock, show, boom. Okay. Very nice. Let's see. I'll come back to question 5. So, D is correct. And here, I mean, I guess in red, here are the answers. Constitutive exocytosis is not regulated. Penocytosis and phagocytosis are both examples of active transports. Photocytosis is independent of clathrin, and well, you can read the red. Now, again, just wait until immunology, you'll see we're going to change up the game. Now, for this one, your concern is correct. So, why is B false? It is because they're both directly proportional. Okay? I see some gap. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So technically it is false, meaning option B would be correct. So I just made a mistake explaining that one. So we'll just blame that one on me. All right. All right. Okay. Next up. Immunology. How can I reply? Well, uh-oh. I made an error, I believe. But thank you, Sarah. We are slaying this evening. Okay, we'll present. I'm gonna stop it at 100. Get him in. All right. Okay, very well. It's fresh in your mind, yeah? Yeah? This was lecture 4. Okay? This one, D. And this has been ingrained in my mind over the years. This is like, I swear I go to bed and I see this graph. So now I have a couple questions for you guys. Oh, never mind. It's right there. I forgot to animate it. So why is IgM produced first? So there's a process called class switching. Don't worry, you don't have to take a photo. I will post this. No. Okay. So there's a process called class switching, and it takes time. It's a process. But to make IgM, you don't need to class switch. And class switch means you go from IgM to IgG, or IgM to IgE, M to A, M to D. It's not going to be tested on this course, but I want to give you guys the complete story so that you understand the knowledge. Now, so you don't have to class switch to make IgM, so you can make them right away. Also, IgM is very effective at activating complement. This is due to its structure. It's a pentamer. It's decovalent. All right, so we can bind complement very easily. And downside is it's not as high affinity as IgG antibodies. And the affinity is to the antigen. All right. So once you do the class switching, there's something called somatic hypermutation. You'll learn about it later. And that's when you can get more specificity. Okay. So bonus question to a mega nerd out there. What complement pathway is this? Yes. Very nice. Excellent. Okay. Oh, more nerd questions. What is the name of the complement protein involved in the alternative pathway? It helps with optimization. Starts with C. Then there's a number. C3b. Okay. Nice. Nice. All right, get him in. Okay. Man, you guys have been paying attention. Very good. All right, quiet down real quick. This is the process that happens. The neutrophil comes in, it adheres, called rolling adhesion. Eventually it stops. There's beautiful, this process, really. And not just neutrophils, all the immune cells go through this when they go into the tissues. So this happens, and then the neutrophil does its thing. And so it's It's the tissue resident macrophages that are releasing these cytokines and chemokines. All right, very good. Any questions so far? No, perfect. All right, get started. Any last minute answers? All right. I'm not accepting the airdrop. Sorry. Very good. Okay. Man, maybe I made these a little too easy. Okay. Now, it is the NK cell. So here, I have a very important topic to discuss, okay? This is a very important thing to know. Maybe someone I can ask them. What is stopping the NK cell from killing your own healthy cells? Oh, it's right there. I put it there on purpose. I didn't hide it. Okay. I wanted you guys to feel confident. It's MHC class 1. So what happens is we got the NK cell here. It has it has the inhibitory receptor. When it binds MHC class 1, it gives it a signal to not kill the cell. But next thing you know, you got your pathogen. He's having the time of his life, circulating in your bloodstream, you're septic. And then your NK cells, who will save your life, see that this guy doesn't have MHC class 1 and ruins his life. So this is very important to know, okay? And also the PAMPs and the PRRs. Here, this might be a PRR, this might be a PAMP here, that recognition would also serve an activating effect for the NK cell. Okay. You might be tested on that. Okay, let's go. Unlock it real quick. Get your answers in. There we go. 112 is a good number. Hey. Okay, very good. Now, I'm going to take you through a story, okay? Unfortunately, I have a tree nut allergy. It's a shame, you know, especially because my family eats a lot of tree nuts in their food. And yeah, so it really does upset my mom when she can't make traditional dishes because of my nut allergies. Now, it is IgE, and here's the process, okay? So now, what happens here is I, as a child, was first exposed to walnuts, and the allergen was processed by the antigen presenting cell, and it was presented to a T helper 2 cell. You don't need to know the other two, right? It's just a helper T cell. Now, what this helper T cell did was it went and it activated this B cell with cytokines and also, yeah, with cytokines. IL-4, IL-12, you don't need to know the cytokines, right? It activated the B cell. Now, this B cell, what happened is it proliferated, it differentiated into plasma cells that make IgE antibodies. And so keep in mind, when I had this walnut the first time, it was delicious. Okay, but I did not mount an immune response because all this happened, right? But no immune response was mounted. Now, these IgE antibodies traveled in my bloodstream, went into my tissues, and there is a receptor on the mast cell. It's called the Fc epsilon receptor. So Fc meaning the Fc portion of the antibody. The epsilon is, you remember the constant segments in the gene? The constant segments, the epsilon starts with an E, right? So it stands for IgE. So then the Fc region of this IgE antibody binds, and then the next time I have a walnut, things go bad. Okay? So now you understand the entire immune response when it comes to allergies. Next question. All right, let's get it up to 100 so we can end on it. You know, like the 100 emoji. Come on. 7 more. All right, 6 more. Take a guess. Like your life depends on it. Oh, nice. Okay. Hey, well done. Well done. Now, this was the last question. All right, we're just gonna go over the process. So, RAG stands for, don't pack up yet, okay? RAG stands for recombination activating gene. I have 3 minutes with you still. So these 2 lines here show a truncation. Now there are a bunch of different gene segments in this region. You can have like 10 more Ds and 5 more Js all between here. But let's say that the fate of this gene was to combine this D with that J, all right? What's gonna happen is, RAG, you don't need to know this process exactly like this, but what happens is it forms a hair loop and it cuts, all right? So everything from here to here, gone, out, you know, not even involved. Next, I want you to focus on this region, okay? Now, I took them like they're like this, and now I've just trained them out, rotated them. So this is what it looks like right now. And then TDT comes in and just starts chucking shit in there, okay? And it's really ruining things up. Sometimes it'll cause like a nonsense mutation, and so that anybody won't get made. But sometimes it'll cause something which results in much more diversity. So that's what TDT does. It throws in nucleotides within the junction, okay? Now you combine this with the entire process. You don't need to know where TDT acts, just know it acts between the junctions, all right? But so when you make the light chain between the V and J recombination, when the RAG chooses where to cut, TDT will throw things in between there to give more diversity. But when you have the heavy chain, it happens twice. This will not be tested, I promise, but it's just for the process. So that brings it to an end. However, I have a few more things to say about the exam, okay? Don't pack up yet. Give me a minute. It won't be too long, okay? What's gonna happen is there's 700 of you. There's not a room that could accommodate 700 people. You'll be distributed to different rooms based on your last name. You'll find out the day of the exam, okay? Just keep that in mind. Make sure you go to the right room. Bring your ID as well. And if English is not your first language, you can bring your translational dictionary. Next up. Study hard. You have 2 weeks left. Watch this again. Make sure you understand everything. Dr. Borath will post a practice test. It has like 30-something questions. It's representative of the exam. Do not look at your notes when you do this thing. That's what I did, and I do not recommend it. You want give yourself an hour and a half of silence to take this, and it's okay if you do poorly. You kind of need to put yourself in the situation where, okay, maybe I don't know the answer, and get comfortable not looking at your notes and taking this exam, because in the midterm, you're not going to be able to do your notes, all right? But other than that, you got this. You're here, you're taking a step forward. Well done. Thank you for coming.